Hello everybody and welcome to the first episode of Shillosophy. And this is your host, Justin of the Ottawa Expositor on this 15th of June of 2015. So, I'd like to open up with the first episode being the definition and the etymology of the word shill in and of itself. So if you do a Google definition, the quick Google search, you will see that it is a North American term, and it is an informal one, an accomplice of a hawker, gambler, or swindler who acts as an enthusiastic customer to entice or encourage others. That's a very, I guess, simplistic definition of it. But it touches basically on the etymology of it, which we'll get into later. But I guess the thing we'll go into now is Wikipedia, because after I did a little bit of research, I thought this was a pretty decent thing that we can go through. There were a couple issues there, but we'll get into it. So, a shill, also called a plant or a stooge, is a person who publicly helps a person or organization without disclosing that they have a close relationship with said person or organization. That could be kind of like a privateer, like a pirate ship, I guess could be. Shill typically refers to someone who purposely gives onlookers the impression that they are an enthusiastic independent customer of a seller or marketer of ideas, for whom they are secretly working. The person or group who hires the shill is using crowd psychology to encourage other onlookers or audience members to purchase the goods or services or accept the ideas being marketed. So that's a big thing that we're putting on. It could be a product, and that's what the etymology is based on. Like I said, we'll get into that later. However, when you're trying to push out information, that's what the product is in and of itself. So are you trying to be an honest pusher of information? Are you trying to get out the most accurate that you possibly could find with your knowledge and with your skills? Or are you a dishonest intellect? That could be a big part of what our more broad definition of the word shill is, as it does take on a lot of meanings. Like the rest of the English language, it has become quite vague, especially over the past 100 years or so. Shills are often employed by professional marketing campaigns. Plant and stooge are more commonly referred to any person who is secretly in league with another person or organization while pretending to be neutral or actually part of the organization he is planted in, such as a magician's audience, a political party, or an intelligence organization. See double agent. Shilling is illegal in many circumstances and in many jurisdictions because of the potential for fraud and damage. However, if a shill does not place uninformed parties at a risk of loss, but merely generates buzz, the shill's actions may be legal, especially when you see some of the laws that are going in with different intelligence agencies to combat cyber terrorism. Just saying. For example, a person planted in an audience to laugh and applaud when desired, see a clack, or to participate in an on-stage activities as a random member of the audience, quote unquote, is a type of illegal shill. So there's many different ways that you can get away with manipulating the audience, which is basically what the most important definition I'm trying to hammer home here is. It's not necessarily someone that's trying to cause a disturbance or trying to cause disruption, but trying to direct a crowd. So when we're listening to other people, are we possibly listening to someone that's trying to entice our actions? Shill can also be used pejoratively, of course it can, to describe a critic who appears either all too eager to heap glowing praise upon mediocre offerings or who acts as an apologist for glaring flaws. In this sense, such a critic would be an indirect shill for the industry at large, because said critics' income is tied to the prosperity of the industry. Sorry guys, I've had the flu for the past few days, and I'm having a little bit of trouble reading, but whatever, I'm sure you can hear me. The etymology of the term shill. The origin of the term shill is uncertain. Uncertain. It may be an abbreviation of shillabur. The word originally denoted a carnival worker who pretended to be a member of the audience in an attempt to elicit interest in an attraction. Some sources trace the usage back to 1914. That might be possible. You can see the links there if you look up the word shill on Wikipedia. However, I found a pretty decent source here. Just give me one moment. Yeah, there we go. And it is on page 377 of A History of Cant and Slang Dictionaries, Volume 3, 1859 to 1936. And as you can see here, it was on White's circus lists. And Shillabur was there, an employee of the circus who rushes up to the kids' show ticket box, so I guess the kiosks, at the psychological moment when the barker concludes his spiel. So just to put that into recent terms, contemporary terms. So like the people who are like, you know, hear ye for the circus, whatever. I don't know if they said hear ye. But they would basically tell you all about the circus, give you the big spiel as, you know, the big yelling guy is the person, the main attraction, the seller of it. And then as he finishes, he concludes with the big finale of his speech. You would have the shillabur that would come in and make his hits. He would hit it straight towards the kiosk. And then his fellow shillaburs purchase tickets and pass inside. And the crowd of towners in front of the bally stand are not slow in doing likewise. So what they're hoping to do with a shillabur is to get people that are unknowing about this deal, this arrangement that they've had with the circus, and to get them to rush just as quickly over to the kiosk. And I can see now this etymology really does make sense as to what a shill is. It would be someone, if they want to push you something that can divert you, in the case of trying to push out information that is trying to be hidden. What they would like to do is create a false or a psyop, you know, a piece of information, a situation, a theory that is completely off base. And what they want you to do then is to follow the lead of the shillaburs, right? They want you to believe them just going on the emotional enticement, the psychological enticement that's created. So whenever you have that enticement, maybe a good example of this would be Coney 2012. Because I don't know if you guys know too much about that, but that was completely ridiculous, borderline fraudulent, depending on how you want to look at it. But it had everybody's attention at the time because it was this emotional thing, like we want to rush and help these guys in Rwanda or whatever wherever it was, Uganda or Central African Republic, whatever. And it turned out to be completely nonsensical, what their plans were, and it was all based on just trying to get people's emotions going. And you're going to see that everywhere. I think this is, you know, this term, shillabur, I think is just what we started calling it, and it's taken hold because a lot of this community, or whatever you want to call it, maybe it stems from the 9/11, so it comes from a North American term, but I'm sure someone that understands the root words of English could probably come to me and tell me exactly what else they would call it. But that is the etymology of that, and I think it tells me a lot today. It's not necessarily just out there to get you ticked off like a troll, like to evoke an emotional response to the negative. But it's there to create the first example to get the ball rolling, to have unsuspecting people follow that Shillable leadoff hitter. This has been the Ottawa Expositor. Thank you very much for listening, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Take care.